Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. It's a beautiful day in Tallahassee, Florida, and I'm glad you're here with us on the Biz and Tech Podcast. Cyber tip of the day. The holidays are coming up. You're going to get texts and emails and phone calls from hackers, and they're going to be after one thing, not the Christmas spirit, your dollars. Do not click on rando emails. It is a recipe for disaster. That is your tip for today. When we started this podcast a couple years ago, I was thinking about featuring guests, thinking about having a good time. I wasn't really thinking about community impact, but we had a guest on, Antoine Wright from Big Bend Habitat for Humanity, a couple shows ago, talking about building houses for those in need. And one thing led to another, and a large donation was made to Big Bend Habitat from someone that watched this show. And thank you to Antoine for the noble work you do. Thank you to Virginia Glass for making that happen. Really cool. So we're not just rambling about technology and rock and roll and sports here. Occasionally, we're making an impact, and I appreciate your support over the years. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Today, we got a special guest coming at us, Brant Menswar. This gentleman is an author, a speaker, a former rock and roll star, and a creator of a cool app called Bookycall. So we're going to dive into all of these things today. Welcome, sir. How are you?
Doing great, brother. Thanks so much for having me today.
Absolutely. So let's dive in. First things first, we got some commonality. Not everyone out there starts their career in the music business or spends a good portion of their career in the music business.
Yeah.
I was tour manager of a regional rock band called the Charlie Mars Band, and my parents were so excited about that career move. And that led to a gig as an artist manager with Sister Hazel, and I got to spend a lot of years doing time in New York and LA and on the road and our office in Atlanta at the Capricorn Records building. But I was the behind the scenes guy. You were the bona fide rock star. If you don't mind, share a little bit about that journey with us and what led you from there to here and in between, man.
Oh, geez. It was not my plan. My plan was to play professional baseball. That's what I went to college for. And I ended up getting hurt, so I had to pivot and didn't quite know what I wanted to do, and spent a good 10 years in different jobs in sort of the corporate world, just trying to figure out what I wanted to do and what I wanted to be when I grew up, I guess. And wasn't until I was 30 that I had like this sort of calling to music. And, by that age, you're already a dinosaur. So it didn't make a whole heck of a lot of sense for me to start my music career at 30, but I did. And I spent, almost the last 20 years now in and out of the music business, 2 different bands, 2 different record deals. So we started with a band called Fort Pastor that sort of started in the Christian market, even though that is not where we were told we were going to be placed. It is where they placed us. And after a few years with that band, we decided not to sign another record deal and moved on and started a new band called Big Kettle Drum and signed another deal and have toured for the last 10 or so years with Big Kettle Drum. We were sort of Mumford & Sons before Mumford & Sons. And awesome. After Mumford & Sons, there was no need for Big Kettle Drum. So we sort of found our way to making it as a musician full time for almost 20 years, but never breaking through to that Sister Hazel level. Love those guys, Ken and Drew. I've played many shows with them, and they are sort of the poster children for modern day musicians taking their life as a business and not just as artists. And so we've learned a lot from them. And, I pivoted maybe about 8 years ago, again, started to slowly take myself off the road and started to speak as a keynote speaker. Started first in the collaboration space and then moved on towards, purpose and values, which is really the space that I have my expertise in today. My last book came out last year as a bestseller called Black Sheep, which is all about what I call your black sheep values, which are these non-negotiable values that you need to define in your life. I believe we all have a flock of 5 of them. You have to figure out what your 5 look like if you want to be able to do anything in your life on purpose. Otherwise, success happens only by accident or luck. And I don't want to rely on either one of those things for my success. And so that's what I've been doing up to this point until about January of this year. after my book came out, I hired this high powered New York book publicist to promote the book, and had just an awful experience. The typical experience that I think any of us have had if you've ever used PR anywhere, which is you pay thousands and thousands of dollars and you don't get shit to show for it. You keep looking out in your driveway for that car that you could have bought with the money that you spent
right
on that PR, and it's just not there, and neither is the press. And so I just decided there had to be a different way. So I fired them and took everything back sort of in my own control. And I started to employ some of the same tactics that we would use selling music, except selling books. And it worked. And so I ended up partnering with a bunch of bookstagrammers, and this whole world of book influencers is a behemoth these days, between Book Talk and Bookstagram and sort of spread out now over the web, that we were able to have a ton of success and made the book a bestseller. And so after a few months of seeing that success, I just approached my business partner, Jim Knight, who spent 21 years with Hard Rock as their director of learning and development, and said, listen, I think there's a hole in the market for some affordable book promotion. And that sort of morphed itself into an app that launched 4 weeks ago, and it's called Bookycall. And Bookycall is the world's first book discovery platform disguised as a dating app. And so you sign up, set up your profile, and instead of browsing people to be matched to, you browse books to be matched to. And it's been just an overwhelming success. We just crossed 55,000 users yesterday, and users in 190 countries already in the last 4 weeks. And so we're just holding on right now and seeing where this leads to. But so far, we are incredibly excited about what we've seen.
Well, that's quite a journey, and each chapter of that journey is very unique. Going back to your music business days, anything jump out on your hospitality writer that was completely random that the world needs to know about?
I will tell you that over the years, with some of the bands that we had a chance to tour with, we were always blown away at the audacity of the things that they would ask for. And we were just so incredibly humble and happy to have a gig that isn't sitting behind a desk 8 to 5 every day, that we asked for we had, of course, the typical waters,
pizza, water, beer, towels.
That was it, right? We weren't big drinkers. And so for us, it was like, we never really needed any of that stuff. So we would always just basically say no Italian food. And that was just so that we wouldn't end up 600 pounds by the end of the tour, because everybody wants to feed you, spaghetti, lasagna, some giant carb loaded meal. And so we tried to keep it as simple as possible with what we did. So Diet Cokes, and if there were Diet Pepsis, we would leave the arena. So there was no Diet Pepsi allowed, only Diet Cokes.
Those are good rules of thumb. Yeah, Sister Hazel always had the massive bottle of Jägermeister on the rider, which always led to interesting things.
Usually does.
And then, of course, the Van Halen brown M&Ms only. And I heard an interesting thing in a book about them, that was just a test. They didn't care about the M&Ms. They just want to make sure the technical aspect of the rider was actually read. So fascinating. All right, well, the book, that's awesome. I had a opportunity and experience this year to put out a book. The local community really embraced it. Midtown Reader is a local bookstore. Sally Bradshaw, the owner there, she was on the show a couple months ago. If the opportunity ever presents itself to get in front of her audience, she hosts authors all the time. She had Dan Silva in a couple years ago, which is one of my favorite spy genre books, which leads me to my next question. You're probably wondering, is there a question? Or is he just going to talk about his book? Professionally Distanced, available on Amazon for your Christmas list, folks. But what do you like to read, man? You have an app, which I want to dive into more about books. But what's the one book you would read if you were on a desert island by yourself? What do you got?
Ooh, that's a tough question for one book. I will tell you that I am a junkie in the sort of self-help, personal development area. That's the books I like to read. Sort of morphed with business and marketing books. I'm just fascinated by sort of the process of modern day marketing and what does that look like and how do we use it? And, so for me, all these books you see behind me are all books that have been incredibly impactful for me. There's things there like Think, Do, Say by Ron Tite. There is The Self-Employed Life by Jeffrey Shaw, which is sort of like the Bible of entrepreneurs who want to feel what it's really like to start a business. You got Swagger by Leslie M. Jim Knight's book, his latest book, Leadership That Rocks, is up there too. So I would have to take a handful of those because I don't have the attention span to just stick with one book for that long. So I'd take 4 or 5.
Awesome. Well, anytime you ask that question, we're having a sports writer on the show next month. And I said, name your favorite sporting event that you've attended in your entire life. And so he gave me a list of 10. And I said, well, that's not one. But, whether it's movie, sporting event, song, book, it's a loaded question. But awesome answer. So the pandemic, weird 2020 for the world, for us all. What was different about speaking? Obviously, I guess the engagements were limited. Writing, is that where the innovation for the app came from? What was 2020 like for you?
Not good. On the professional side, the pivoting to what virtual was going to look like. People not really knowing how to handle virtual up until 2020. It was sort of you thought of it as a webinar perhaps, but there was no real investment in what a virtual event would look like or feel like. And so everybody started to pivot. Everybody sort of faced the early cancellations and the postponements. And then it just sort of morphed into how hard are you going to embrace what this new world looks like? And so a lot of people who wanted to sort of continue to do their talks had to make significant investments into home studios. So for myself here, I've got 3 or 4 cameras in this studio with different angles. I can move the camera back and forth. I've got overhead shots. I've got all kinds of craziness that happened so that I could maintain fee integrity and still charge what I wanted to charge because I am basically producing a television show for them to watch instead of being there live. So on that front, it was some forced innovation, and it's worked out all right. It actually turns now where we're sort of slowly turning the page of coming back to live events. The live events still don't look the same as they used to, and they won't for a while. I think we're going to get to maybe the 3rd or 4th quarter of next year before you start to see some sense of what we would consider normalcy pre-pandemic. But beyond that, the technology and the ability to present virtually allows for significant add-ons to live events. So now, it's not just a one and done. You could go in and do a keynote and a follow-up webinar or a follow-up series using incredibly professional gear and equipment that has significant value. So if you're smart about it, you actually found a way to make more money being able to use these newfound skills over the last year. Personally, the pandemic was horrendous. COVID took my son's life in February. And so it's been the worst year on record in one way. And so everyone's sort of learning to get through this as to what it's going to look like, how we're going to deal with it moving forward. And more importantly, what do we take with us from some of these lessons that were forced upon us.
Well, my condolences. So, proudest moment of your career. You've talked about some pretty legendary accomplishments, a best-selling book, a launch of an app. What is your proudest moment of your career or in your personal life thus far?
Yeah. Raising 2 sons who have a competitiveness in them that makes them want to win, but they don't have to win in order to find value or experience any sort of joy or happiness. One of my biggest concerns for this next generation is it's not the fact that they grew up where everybody got a trophy, which is one thing. It's the fact that no one taught them to want to win. And I think that is going to cripple the next few generations. It's not about whether you win or lose, but you most certainly should want to win. And so both of my boys have grown up incredibly competitive. have found ways to enjoy themselves when they haven't won. But man, no matter what they do, whether that's playing a board game, after dinner one night, or it's, playing basketball or sports or whatever they choose to do, man, they go at it blood and guts and want to win. And that's going to serve them so incredibly well when they get into a workforce that recognizes and rewards you for performance, not just for showing up. And I think we have a couple generations who show up and think that they deserve a raise because they weren't late for work. But that's sort of what's expected. There's nothing to do with performance. And so for me, it's raising some kids who actually have a desire to win, which is a lost art these days.
Wow, you really hit the nail on the head there. And so many thoughts are popping into my head. I'll probably not comment on all of them. Whether it's our team or family. I read a book, a professor at FSU here in Tallahassee. He has some physical limitations that he deals with every day. And he wrote this book about how he got where he is. He's also a speaker, author, teacher, wonderful man, James Harding. And he says play to win in his book all the time. And that's always stuck to me. I wrote it on my whiteboard. When you're thinking about the day's challenges, what that looks like, don't sit on the sidelines. And no points for showing up, man. Thanks for sharing that. So professional hurdles. You mentioned record label problems. You mentioned personal tragedy. What's the toughest thing professionally that you've overcome in recent years?
So I'm a self-professed control freak of the highest caliber. If you and I went to dinner and you invited me out to dinner, I'd say yes, and I'd drive your car. That is the level of control that I need to have in my life. And as a self-professed control freak, the hardest lesson I've learned in the last couple of years is that I was winging it. Over the last few years, I've discovered that about 99% of us are actually winging it. And what I mean by that is, unless you can definitively tell me what your 5 or so personal, non-negotiable core values are, why you chose them, why they are what they are for you, and how you employ and activate them on a daily basis, then you're winging it, which is fine. It can get you to some pretty decent levels of success, but you're not going to reach there on purpose. And so for me, I had to define these things in my life. And by defining them, it's allowed me to create even more powerful and successful businesses because I'm doing them on purpose. I am actually activating and creating through these non-negotiable values, which allow me to be incredibly focused without getting distracted by a bunch of things that are really important. And so for me, that's what it's been.
Awesome. You a sports guy?
I am a big sports guy.
So the question is, favorite, most memorable sporting event that you have attended? What you got, sir?
I grew up as sort of a baseball prodigy up in New Hampshire, and sort of had some pretty big expectations on my shoulders. And
well, let me preface this question then. Or played on a team, because it sounds like you probably had some special experiences there. So as a fan or as an athlete, your call.
What I'll tell you is all of my success as an athlete led to having an opportunity to literally stand on the mound at Fenway. I had received a scholarship from a gentleman, Mike Flanagan, was pitched for the Orioles and was Cy Young Award winner in '79, won the World Series in '81. And my dad was his coach growing up, his high school coach. And he stayed close to the family. Mike was sort of my idol growing up, and a real master of not just throwing, but pitching, right? Keeping charts and knowing what you threw the last time, and game planning as to what you were going to do each time somebody went up to the plate. It wasn't just trying to hit a glove. And so for me, he provided me this opportunity to actually go down onto the field at Fenway, stand on the mound. And I will tell you, it's life-changing it's like Charlie Brown mound, man. That thing, it is so high. It is at the absolute maximum height allowed. And when you come down off that mound, you feel like it's 10 feet shorter than it really is, because you're just literally being catapulted towards the plate. So for me, I'll never forget, it was my senior year of high school, and having the ability to stand there and have Wade Boggs in the dugout watching me throw was pretty cool.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, you bet.
So at our home, we worked in the kitchen a lot, fine-tuning some recipes, favorite beverages throughout 2020, and still today. For the first time, we actually meal plan a little bit. We're not like the hardcore Tupperware. This is Monday, this is Tuesday, this is Wednesday. But, we'll crank out a pot of soup on a Sunday afternoon and eat it for lunch versus, a Whataburger alternative, which there's a Whataburger right across the street from my office. So it's a daily struggle to deal with that, man. Daily. Taquitos for breakfast. Oof. Anywho, what are you guys whipping up in the kitchen at the home front? Any special number one meal that you've recently concocted?
I've been doing HelloFresh.
Oh, nice.
Believe it or not, for a couple weeks now, and enjoying that. For me, I'm a coffee snob. Like, it's a problem. You don't want to go to a coffee place with me.
You will drive us there and you will tell me what to get, right?
I will nitpick something to death. So yeah, for me, it's a lot of, now it's coffee-based beverages. So, I had a nice little dirty apple cider chai the other day, which is basically like a shot of espresso and a little bit of bourbon and honey, and everything sort of mixed in there as well with the apple cider. And I got to tell you, it was pretty damn good.
Awesome. All right, let's talk about the app.
Yeah.
Bookycall. So available for download wherever you download apps. Any particulars there for someone wanting to check it out?
It's available both on Android and iOS.
Awesome.
And it's really designed to, you sort of log in, you create yourself a profile, which is free. Doesn't take that long at all. You've got a bunch of sort of sliders to say the types of books that you enjoy reading. So there's like 10 categories of fiction and 10 categories of nonfiction. You use those sliders to say, I like this more than I like that. And then the app creates an algorithm for you and starts to suggest books to you based on what you like. And so we have a staff of 16 writers that write these really creative, ingenious book reviews in the form of a dating profile. So we took 9 questions from actual dating sites, and we've crafted the review of the book by answering those questions. So things like, who should swipe right on me? What are my most attractive traits? What's the dorkiest thing about me? What's the most inspirational quote? What's my best one-liner? All of these things that are questions that people have had to actually answer on a dating app. There's 44 million people in this country that are on dating apps right now. So they're familiar with these questions already. So we've just wrapped the book review by answering them. And it's been this incredibly powerful way to connect with books that has yet to have been done. So we're sort of first to market in this way. And we believe it's what the future of book recommendation actually is going to look like.
Well, that's powerful. And what a great time for it. I think a lot of people rediscovered reading in the past couple of years. And I'm one of those old school fogies that, I go to the bookstore and I pick out what I want to read, and I lay on my couch now with my glasses. Welcome to 47. But I still love a physical book. Are you a digital or physical book guy? What do you think?
I'm a physical book guy, man. As much as I will say I'm a physical book guy and slowly being converted to an audio book guy. But the audio game for me, coming from the music business, there has to be some level of production in there, or it just makes me mad. So, it's got to be done well. If it's done well, then I will listen to a well-done audio book, because it just fits easier into my schedule these days of throwing it in when I'm listening in the car or something, driving back and forth to the office. But yes, those would be my two. But I like to hold it. I want to actually feel it. I want to see how far I have left to go. It's hard to do that digitally. I want to be able to look and go, I got 1/8 of an inch. I can make it. That's what I need.
Yeah, I got the funny look at the bookstore last time. I picked up Lemmy, the lead singer of Motorhead's book, as well as the new Dan Silva book, The Cellist, and something else. And the ladies looked at me. And so, will that be all? I'm like, Lemmy and the Mossad, that's all I need for today, man.
It's a
Well,
good
cool.
combination right there. Yeah. I did the last two in the music world. I read Sammy Hagar's memoir, and I read Running with the Devil, the Van Halen's tour manager who wrote that one, and both were amazing. Sammy's was actually one of the best memoirs I've ever read. It was really, really well done, and that is just a brilliant man that you have no idea the level of success he has had outside of the music business because of
His
success
tequila,
in the music business.
unbelievable.
Crazy.
Restaurants, and the franchise restaurant gets a bad rap, but Cabo Wabo is awesome. The one in Vegas, I've parked there many times. Really enjoyed it. And I think he's immortal also. He doesn't look like his age.
Is a little, to know he's like 70, 72, something like that now is a little bit scary that he can still bring it whenever he wants to on that stage is something to aspire to. That's for sure.
And that band, for whatever reason, our beach house in Panama City, I remember in 1984, the first time Panama came on, 106.7 out of Dothan. I was like, I need to play the guitar. I mean, that was the influence. And the day Eat 'Em and Smile came out, the David Lee Roth solo record with 5150 at the same time, buying those tapes at Sound Warehouse in Houston. I remember that day like it was yesterday, man. That band was incredible and love their music. Absolutely love it. All right, so let's wrap it up soon here. Anything else on the app you want to share out there with our audience?
It's a great way to find, especially this time of year, some holiday gifts and sort of allows you to build a little bookshelf of what you want to read that sort of gets stored into your DMs on the app. And so I would just recommend this is just a way for you to actually find a book that you're going to like, that doesn't require you to read the back of the book or to get a bad suggestion or referral from a friend who doesn't really know you all that well. Trust yourself, trust what you like, and let the algorithm do the work for you.
Well, what a great idea. I downloaded the app, and I look forward to diving into that world. So our final question today, we've been talking about the world of rock and roll a lot. So along the same lines of the book, what's the favorite album or favorite band, or both? You pick.
So, if I have to go with one, it's always going to be Prince. And that is the only answer that's acceptable, is Prince. He is, to me, just was and continues even in his death to be a genius. And so that's sort of one. But the last couple of years, I've been obsessed with David Ramirez. David is a singer-songwriter from Austin who's just in the last maybe 3 or 4 years found a different level of success. But pound for pound, arguably to me, the greatest living songwriter on the planet. At the level of a Jason Isbell, that's sort of really where it's at. And he is someone who makes me want to burn almost every song I've ever written. So those are the types of people that you want to surround yourself with.
Absolutely. All right, ladies and gentlemen. On the Biz and Tech podcast, to wrap up the year, we're having Brian Edwards, sports writer, handicapper for VegasInsider.com and MajorWager.com. Next year, we'll kick it off with singer-songwriter Charlie Mars joining the show in conjunction with his gig here in Tallahassee, Florida. Brant, you've got a hell of a story, man. Rock and roller, speaker, author, app creator, and a guy with a cool studio. Love the guitars behind you. Very cool. Thank you so much for joining us today. We look forward to continuing our engagement. And as we close, go check out Bookycall. It looks awesome. And go check out my book, Professionally Distanced. Thanks for listening, ladies and gentlemen. Be safe out there. I'm Blake Dowling, CEO of Aegis Business Technologies in Tallahassee, Florida, signing off. Brant, we'll see you soon, sir. Y'all have a great day. See you next time.
Thanks, brother.